Welcome back to the 2Dumb2Quit podcast with Jeremy McComb. Very talented, god-awful ugly.
Happy 4th of July here on the 2Dumb2Quit podcast. Coming off of a bit of a vacation in the mountains of Idaho and Montana, which is why I haven't brought y'all a new episode, but I'm back. And we're back to making sure you've got a new 2Dumb2Quit podcast to look forward to every Tuesday. So thank you for subscribing. Thanks for keeping up with me. And I waited this week, actually, to post this one today, with it being the 4th of July week. And I always try to highlight people who have persevered through crazy, difficult circumstances, who saw it through with grit and determination, and the stories of their journeys and their character, and through the difficulties as a way to keep us all moving through the darkness that each of us seem to have as we're battling our way through the tunnel to that small flickering light of our goals and the things that we're busting our ass for there at the end. And so today, with it being 4th of July weekend, I wanted to highlight a true 100, especially as an American, Benjamin Franklin. And so I'm just going to go through a little of this history with Benjamin Franklin. Ooh, it would take days to cover it all. But Ben Franklin was born January 17th, 1706. And outside of being a founding father of the United States, he was a leading writer, a philosopher, especially a political philosopher, a postmaster, a scientist, a humorist, a civic activist, a statesman, a diplomat. As a scientist, he was a major figure in the American Enlightenment and in the history of physics for his theories and discoveries regarding electricity. Everybody knows about the kite and the key and all that shit. And as an inventor, he's known for the lightning rod, bifocals, the Franklin stove, and the founder of many civic organizations, including the Library Company, Philadelphia's first fire department, and the University of Pennsylvania. He actually nicknamed him the first American for his relentlessness in campaigning for colonial unity. He was the first ambassador of the United States to France, and for the way that he tried to exemplify the emerging American nation. He was a foundation in the American ethos, I guess, like our tradition as that marriage between practical values, hard work, dedication, community spirit, self-governing institutions in opposition to authority, an overreaching of political and religious beliefs. And he's really, if you're looking at the definition of the American dream and the American spirit that people have talked about my entire life and for generations before, it really was embodied. He was kind of the first real embodiment of that. And we could go, like I said, on and on for hours about his accomplishments, from being a newspaper editor and printing that he did in Philadelphia to creating the American College of Philadelphia, how he became an American hero as an agent for several colonies when he went head-to-head with London and Parliament, repealing the unpopular Stamp Act, which was a tax on American colonies, which were British colonies, I guess, at the time. But they were forced to pay taxes on and use nothing but London-made paper, and it had to have a tax stamp on it. And he worked with France, securing shipments of crucial supplies for American soldiers and for colonies during the American Revolution. He was heavily active in community affairs, colonial, state politics, and in the late 1750s, as the Postmaster General for the British colonies, was arguing against slavery as he became a staunch abolitionist, being against slavery. And so the list goes on and on. But I wanted to touch on something that he authored that I use every day in a roundabout way, his outlook on life, to live as we should. And he wrote a remarkable plan for attaining moral perfection. And interestingly enough, as you dive a little more into this, and even though Franklin never, rarely referenced Stoic philosophers, he drew on the inspiration from the philosophical tradition that plays a huge role in Stoicism. And it comes from Socrates, and it's things that each of us can use every day to be better versions of ourselves. And you see in every generation that comes from this philosophy, you start to see these things that all tie together. It's all the same thing. Maybe some goes a little more in depth, maybe some go different directions, but it's something that we can all use every day. And he said, even though we wish to be virtuous, that our wish is not enough simply on its own to keep us from backsliding. So it would be like, man, I wish I was a millionaire, but I don't really want to put the work into creating a company that can get me to that goal. And that we must break bad habits and establish discipline and good habits before we can have any dependence on a steady conduct from ourselves. How can we rely on ourselves to act a certain way if we're not practicing it and holding ourselves accountable to it in every way? And so he adapted a method that I would call Stoic principles of his own to keep himself honest in his path on what he called a path to moral perfection. And now the perfection word I have a little bit of trouble with just because we all strive for that. But we will all fall short, especially as we first enter the waters of this thought process of being better. It's like going into a gym for the first time and thinking you're going to start deadlifting 400 pounds, or getting into martial arts and thinking you're going to start submitting people when, the first day in jiu-jitsu, you're fumbling all over the place, you're awkward, you don't know what to do. But I heard this put the other day by a guy who comes into our gym, because we had Stevie, our guitar player, come in and try his first day at jiu-jitsu, which was amazing. But when he walked in, and if you've never been in that type of a gym, if you've never walked into a jiu-jitsu gym for the first time, you're going to find a bunch of people on the mat from every different walk of life, from every different financial structure, from every tax bracket, every walk of life you could imagine, male, female, black, white, purple, it doesn't matter. And everybody is open arms. And as you walk in, we've got a guy in our gym, and he's only been coming for a few months, but he said something so powerful. Stevie walked in, and he shook his hand. He goes, "Hey, man, what's up? What's your name?" And he told him his name, introduced himself, and he goes, "Well, hey, dude, it's my first day in here." And he said, "Well, you're already 99. You're ahead of 99% of the world's population right now because you're trying, and you're getting in, and you're doing that." And I just thought, what a profound, strong statement to make to somebody on their first day walking in, especially coming from guys who haven't been doing it that long. Guys like me, I've been in, coming up on a year, and it changes so deeply. And so when you find these things you're passionate about, it's not just jiu-jitsu or martial arts or music or art or whatever it is that you're into. When you find those things, we all want to be better. But none of us are going to be perfect, and especially in the beginning. And Ben Franklin, as a kid, studies Socrates' method of questioning, which he realized was kind of an annoying thing when you're constantly questioning people's motives, you're constantly questioning people's character or their judgment, and then realized it worked much better when applied to yourself. When saving the judgment we might use for others and using it against our own character, a moral self-examination into a daily self-improvement routine, which he actually based on a poem called The Golden Verses of Pythagoras. And the lines of the poem read, "Never allow sleep to close your eyelids until you have examined all your actions of your day by your reason." We talk about this in one form or another in almost every podcast we do, balancing the books every night before we go to sleep, seeing the events of the day, self-correcting, and then letting it go, seeing a certain situation and realizing, I don't like the way I reacted to that. Tomorrow, I will react differently. Or, hey, I owe this guy an apology, taking care of it right there. I'm going to make a quick phone call. Or, I didn't handle that right. I'm going to explain that to my wife and saying, I could have handled this better. I'm sorry I didn't. Tomorrow I will. Learning, examining, moving forward. So at the end of each and every day, we lay our heads down to start, if we're lucky enough to open our eyes the next day, to start totally fresh. And the poem continues on, and it brings 3 questions, which is a great addition to any routine at the end of the day. What did I do wrong? What have I done well? And what did I leave out that I should have done? And in this examination, looking at that, if we find we've done something wrong, we need to reprove ourselves for it. We need to get on our own asses and hold ourselves accountable, honestly hold ourselves accountable, and take whatever action needs to be done to make it right. Now, in the same breath as that, holding yourself, severely accountable for the things that you aren't doing right. Now, I'm not saying beat yourself up. You can't beat yourself up for weeks and weeks and weeks over these things. You have to examine it, realize it, be honest with ourselves, internalize it, make it right, and move on. Now, if we've done something good, you got to give yourself the same respect of a job well done. And meditate on these. By meditate, I'm not talking about light 9 candles and sit in a corner with some incense and but think through these things before you lay down in bed at night. It's something I do every night. Honest, brutally honest self-examination is the only way we're going to get the growth that we want. To be honest with ourselves when we fuck up and to hold ourselves accountable and then correct it and move on knowing that even in the same reflection, that second question you might of what we did well, it might very well be that you righted what was wrong from question number 1. So your first thing might be, what did I fuck up today? I don't like how I reacted to this. I don't like where I went. And then the next question you ask yourself is, what did I do right? Well, I made that right. I bettered myself by apologizing, by walking over and explaining, I'm sorry, that was not the reaction I intended. Whatever it is, by making that right, that should be an answer to your second question of what have you done well? And it makes you better. Ben Franklin lays out his plan for moral perfection from all these examples, and he notes it in a system with a much more extensive list of virtues, and he wrote a little explanation next to each one, expressing kind of the essence of what the thought behind it is. Now, there's 12 of these on here. The first is temperance. It says, eat not to dullness and drink not to elevation. Silence. Speak not but what may benefit others. Order. Let all things have their place and let each part of your business have its time. Resolution. Resolve to perform what you need to get done. Frugality. Make no expense but to do good to others and yourself. Industry. Lose no time. Always be employed by something useful. Cut out unneeded actions. Sincerity. Don't use hurtful deceit. Think innocent and justly and speak accordingly. Justice. Wrong none. Injure none. Moderation. Avoid extremes. Cleanliness. Tolerate no uncleanliness of the body or our minds. Tranquility. Be not disturbed. Humility. Imitate Jesus and Socrates. Now, this is his list. And these are all things, again, that we continue to talk about. Temperance. Silence. Order. Shouting the good. Not talking shit, examining our own flaws instead of others. There's I think it was Marcus Aurelius who said, before you point out another person's flaws, find which one of your own flaws it most closely resembles. That's such a great reminder. So instead, before you go, oh, look at the way this guy, oh, you know what? I kind of do that sometimes too. That's that honest self-reflection and doing the right thing, avoiding unhealthy thoughts and actions. And he would journal this every day. It's a great reminder of a way to start the day. What good can I do today? And then ending your day with what good did I bring to the world today? What good did I get done today? And then the humility, imitating people who inspire you. I have a handful of people who I know personally who are all in my circle, guys that I roll with, guys that I hang with, guys I do business with, people that I look up to from history. Going back into, the Stoic philosophy, men and women who have served this country, who have inspired me, whatever it is, whoever it is for you, having that humility and then the tranquility of allowing yourself to let it go, to move through it, understand you made a mistake. You don't have to put yourself on the coals for months on end because you're not the person you were when you make those mistakes. You made the mistake. You righted the mistake. You bettered yourself. You're not even the same person anymore. Just a great reminder. So it's from a man who brought us what the American dream means. The hard work we strive on, the hustle, the grind, the repetition that comes from getting our asses kicked and not giving in. These men had so much more to lose than we do now. And we need to remind ourselves that our world, regardless of what they're showing us on TV, regardless of what politician is saying what to create division, the world is a kind and beautiful place if you choose to see it that way. Now, obviously, there's changes. Everything can be better. But everywhere I go across this country, I run into great people from every background you could imagine, from every country you could imagine. It's a melting pot of wonderful people out there if you choose to see it that way. And I'm kind of challenging you to just take a chance to see it that way. Living in the light, not buying into the fear and the chaos, and continuing to do good to each other at every opportunity, and it will continue to change the world for the better. So that is the Too Dumb to Quit soapbox we're on today, talking about Benjamin Franklin. And if you haven't looked into the things that Ben Franklin was a part of, the things that he spearheaded, it really is an unbelievable journey, and one that I would definitely recommend you go check out, even if you're just starting with a Wikipedia page and going through some of it. So it's something that we can all be better at on our way to moral self-examination and making sure that we're putting out the best version of ourselves for our own mental health. Happy 4th of July. Hope everybody stays happy and healthy and safe. I will be back next Tuesday with a new episode of the Too Dumb to Quit podcast. Stay the path. Remember, small changes in our mind make big changes in our lives. And if you're on the internet this weekend hanging out, make sure you go over to the YouTube page, youtube.com/official Jeremy McComb. Subscribe to the page. We've got a bunch of content coming up, and the work is on there. And, of course, we always upload the podcast as well. Follow me up on Instagram at McCombover. See what I did there? McCombover. And keep an eye out for tour dates. We do have some runs coming up here in July over at jeremymccomb.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, share it on your socials. And you guys, again, stay safe. Have a great 4th of July weekend. And I will talk to you guys next week. Cheers.